Welcome back to Foiling Week 2021 and the Gurit Forum. I am your host, Chris Museler, and we've been ripping through these pre-recorded sessions before we actually get to Lake Garda. But this is going to be the opening session of 2021's Foiling Week on Lake Garda. Last year, we moved the session to September, and we did live recordings of all the panel discussions for the Gurit Forum. Now we're a mix of the two because of people's availability and travel restrictions. So this topic today, let's see, what's our title? Flying over barriers and foiling and gender equity in professional water sports. That's a mouthful, but it is one of the most important topics that we can talk about and has been probably one of the lead pillars in Foiling Week's 3 pillars. So our 3 pillars are safety, sustainability, and accessibility. And over the years, Jean-Kiel Hackenberg, who's the head of the Magenta Project, which is designed to create and help foster more opportunities for women in professional sailing. She can't make it because she's stuck in the United Kingdom's train disaster that's going on right now. I don't know if that's union or accident driven or whatever it is. She can't make it. Tomorrow, we're going to do an interview with her directly. She's going to listen to this conversation. We're going to build on this conversation. So that's the Magenta Project. But for right now, let me introduce you to our guests. We have directly from Lake Garda, we have Olivia Mackay, who's a New Zealander and a foiling sailor. And then we have Daniela Moroz early in the morning on the West Coast. And back here on the East Coast, we have Kimo Worthington, Kimo, what's your title at Sail GP?
General Manager.
General Manager. Perfect. And so Kimo is heavily involved with Daniela because Daniela is a female member of the Sail GP team. Daniela, are you the only female member of the team at the moment, at least on the sailing side?
Yeah, kind of. So I'm the only female on the team that's like actively doing the events, but we have another girl that's training on the Wasp on her own time and will be joining us later this season, which is cool.
Awesome. Well, let's kick this off by making the connection why we're all here today. Right now, we know that at Foiling Week, we're very well aware that hydrofoils are really acting as either a reset or a boost to a lot of different maritime space industries and transportation and energy conservation, and then also in performance sailing and even recreational sailing with wing foiling, wing surfing, e-foiling, and all those other aspects that we see it influencing and positively influencing access to the sport, improving performance, and also drawing a lot more attention to the sport. But the conversation that we're having today is, what is the introduction of hydrofoiling doing to the accessibility of the sport, particularly having to do with females being professional sailors, pathways through the Olympics and to areas like Sail GP and the America's Cup. And so I'm kind of starting this off with a challenge. And my challenge is that at the 2017 America's Cup, we had all the challengers. I think you guys saw this in my prep. We had all the challengers and defender of the America's Cup and all the skippers in a press conference. And Sophia Becca-Turu, who's a double gold medalist from Greece, a female sailor, asked the question just straight up from the audience, why aren't there any female sailors in the America's Cup? And it was, you know, I'm not going to give the skippers a hard time, but they literally were like, you know, looking at each other. And Peter Burling, to his credit, said, well, you know, we needed good sailors with this experience, and this is what we came up with. And it was like you can hear a pin drop in the room. Great question, hard to answer. And, you know, and we go forward from 2017 to now, and actually before that, when Olivia won the foiling generation, that was a co-ed, you know, first ever, most influential foiling international event for youth sailers, bar none, you know, regardless of the Youth America's Cup and stuff like that. Olivia wins it as a skipper. And still, you know, it's just right now that the two of you are on Sail GP programs and working into those programs. So I guess my question right now to the group is hydrofoiling, how important is hydrofoiling right now to the advancement of women? At least let's talk about professional sailing, and then we can go all the way around with that, because it's been a couple years since 2017, still no women on the last America's Cup. And Olivia, you were very young when you won the foiling generation. You had an Olympic campaign. You were in one of the top New Zealand teams. What's changed from 2017 to now for your opportunities for women, and is hydrofoiling helping that? Olivia, you there? You were gonna chime in. Oh no. How about you, Daniela? Why don't you, what's
from phantom sailing into an America's Cup campaign. So for me, hydrofoiling has been, a massive opportunity and has a big attraction to the sport. And I don't feel many barriers, to be honest. I think I've come through at a really lucky time, and I do think that's mainly because of hydrofoiling. It's really put everyone on a level playing field in regard to males and females. We're all kind of learning at the same time. So and a lot of females have jumped on board with it, and fortunately it's now changing from the top down as well as the bottom up, where they are slowly starting to offer those opportunities to females. But yeah, it's a slow process, and the America's Cup is obviously the pinnacle of our sport, so you can't expect to do a couple of years and a bit of Olympic campaigning and jump straight into there. There's a lot more that I need to learn to actually offer value for those opportunities. But yeah, it's a really fun time to be in our sport.
Awesome. And Daniela, I mean, Kimo made a point to me when we talked before that at the moment, because of your success in kitefoil racing, you're the top male or female international competitor in our entire sport right now, based on your achievements. And so, and international, where the way all of us match ourselves against the world is through international competition. Do you find that for yourself over the last couple of years, is it the hydrofoil racing and your commitment to it that has given you these opportunities leading all the way up to SailGP? Or
Yeah,
you've done it in
definitely.
any angle of the sport?
Yeah, and I think I feel like I'm in a bit of a different situation for sure, because I didn't grow up sailing and I didn't go through the traditional like learn to sail pathway. I learned to kite when I was 12. Both of my parents were windsurfers. And I didn't really have any real exposure to sailing per se until I won Rolex Yachtswoman of the Year in the US in 2016. And that was my first real exposure to the sailing world and what was kind of happening then. And so, yeah, I think that it's definitely opened up a lot of opportunities for me now. And I think just when it comes down to it, I love kiting, I love foiling, I love going fast, and I love seeing kind of where that can take me. Um, so I think Liv said it perfectly. Like, it's a really exciting time to be in our sport, and for so many more opportunities being, around for female sailors. And it's really cool to be a part of that and to have the opportunity to show other women like, hey, you can do this too. And if I'm a kiter that has pretty minimal sailing experience, but you're willing to learn and motivated to put the time in and put the effort in, then you can totally do it. And yeah, it's very exciting times, and it's cool to be a part of it.
You both said the same thing. Like, and Olivia, you were like, my timing is good. You came onto the scene with the first international youth foiling event, right? And Daniela, you came onto the scene just as kitefoil racing was becoming professional. So those are great you're like seizing those opportunities right at the right time. But you have a really momentary perspective. And so Kimo, looking back before the foiling generation, before the IKA foil sports, can you compare and say, have we come a long way? And before Kimo answers this, and you two may not even know this, but Kimo was the coach for the All Women's America's Cup team in 1995, I guess that was. And so he ran straight into the exact same thing he's doing right now with Sail GP, with you, Daniela, and what you're experiencing, Olivia. So from 1995 till today, Chemo, and you know, and we can weave hydrofoiling into it. What has changed for women in professional sailing? What is it better? Do they have more pathways?
I don't. It's hard to say, honestly, Chris. And I don't know if I'd say professional. Like, let's keep the professional part out of it. Let's just say women in sailing you know, like I was just at Block Island, and
Block
it seems
Island
like there's
Race Week.
yeah, and there seems like there's women on all the boats. There's females on the boats now. There's women driving the boats to the dock now. There's women racing the boats. There's my wife works for Royal Caribbean Cruise Line. There's a great captain. She runs the whole ship. She's the first U.S. captain that's sailing again in the U.S. And she has her whole own women crew. So there is things happening. I'd say where we're behind is tacticians, kind of the women running the boats in the professional sports, probably, you know, but you know, I gotta say, the one thing that's cool about the foiling, it's just fun. Like to watch everyone foiling and to be in the professional sailing, you know, is it really that cool? I'm kind of like what they're doing. Honestly, I'm like jealous of Danielle. Like, really? You get to go do what you do. My wife saw it. She's like, holy smokes. I was showing one of our ladies, that's the wife of Joe Brito, who's founding our foiling first event that we're doing here. And she's like, holy smokes, she does that. And the fact that she goes and competes against the men and you see it, I mean, it's amazing. And the wing foiling that's going on at Block Island, I mean, everyone's just got this huge buzz. And even people who, you know, are my age are all of a sudden, can I do this? I'm like, absolutely, you can do it. And so there's people just kind of getting up on the foiling, and the wing things kind of changed everyone's kind of perspective. The e-foiling, everything's kind of amazing that's starting to happen here. Now, is there a long way to go? Absolutely. You know, and we're doing this with our foiling first, hopefully trying to create a pathway. But the one thing I've seen over the years, if you have the desire, you can do it. You know, there's nothing, like Olivia said, there's no real barriers if you have the desire to really want to do this. You know, if a female became the Moth World Champion, guess what? She's going to be the next America's Cup skipper in my book. You know what I mean? In the end of the day. And if you look at no women in the America's Cup, look, we hardly had any Americans on our side, right?
Yeah.
In the afterguard. So there's a huge lack of foiling talent, you know, on the racing or coming up in America.
And I would, to build on that.
And that's something we're working on at Sail GP.
Awesome. And so to build on that, Chemo, there's a difference between being asked to do a role like in the afterguard on the boat, being tactics, and asking. And I know that it has, you know, I've seen it myself, you know, there are a lot of males being asked, you know, out of the ranks from, you know, whether it be the Olympic, you know, NACRA 17 or other high performance classes like the Moth and stuff, versus them going and asking, you know, offering, hey, I have these skill sets. Is it true? And I think it is, but I'm just throwing it out to the group. I feel that Daniela and Olivia have the exact same, you know, fast decision-making skills that the America's Cup tacticians and drivers have because of their sports. And so I feel that they have the same exact skill sets to be excellent drivers and tacticians in performance boats, even if it's non-foiling. Is that right?
No, there's no question of that. There's no question that the women can do it. It's just getting the right pathway. It's, you know, even with men, it's the right place, right time kind of thing happens, you know. And I think opening your eyes, like we did our initiative with Sail GP, we had the 58 women apply, and all these different women doing all these cool things in the sport. All of a sudden your eyes do open up. So our eyes open up. Like there's a woman right now sailing the foiling ACATs, and she's in the middle of the fleet. She's almost to the top of the fleet. So there's a lot of things happening and opening our eyes to this. Yes. I think times are going to be different here in the next 3 years. You're going to see, my guess is we'll see someone for sure sailing on the boats in Sail GP in the next season, for sure.
And
that's the goal.
For Daniela and Olivia, When you look at the landscape, obviously you're both currently professional athletes, so you're hyper focused on what you're doing right now. What are your ambitions, and do you think about that, like in terms of planning out where you want to be? I mean, it's one thing to say you guys have the skill sets to be driving or in the afterguard or in a lot of positions on SailGP or an America's Cup boat, but do you want to do that? And what are your other ambitions?
I'll go. So have a lot of ambitions. I think that's a super cool thing about our sport, is that there are just so many different classes, different types of racing, and I'm really attracted to doing all of them. So for me, it's really about taking every opportunity that I feel will upskill me. And I really want to be the best sailor that I know that I can be. And that's just jumping into different classes, different boats, different racing. And yeah, hopefully that leads me to the top of our sport, but we'll see.
Cool. And how about you, Daniela?
Yeah, I think again, Liv said it perfectly. Like in the end, I think my ambition is just to be, yeah, the best sailor I can be, and taking advantage of every opportunity that comes my way. And if that means, yeah, just staying with SailGP for another season or more, who knows, doing an Olympic campaign in kiting. But I think just, yeah, the key will be to take advantage of every opportunity, and just make the most of what comes my way, and just, yeah, stay motivated, keep working hard, and doing what I can to, yeah, just do my best.
Now, just seeing both of you and understanding and promoting how you guys have gotten to where you are. I mean, Chemo knows uh, for most sailors, and particularly women sailors, it's the Wild West in terms of how your career trajectory in our sport. It's not like soccer or hockey or field hockey or volleyball or any of those other things. There's a lot of luck involved. There's a lot of hustle. There's a lot of who you know. But and I think that still exists. Is that correct, Chemo? And breaking into
I'd,
a career?
yes, I would say that's correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's right place, right time. And I would say my ambition is to make sure there's a pathway open for women in the sport. That's our goal here at SailGP. And Foiling First is to create this pathway.
Right. So SailGP is something very visible and at pinnacle, and then something. So tell me a little bit about Foiling First. That is something like a buildup,
That's a buildup. We have 3 tiers. We have a Foiling First camp in Bristol for kids,
Bristol,
July
Rhode
20th,
Island.
20th. Yeah. Yep. So, and that has half women, half boys. And then we also have the community high school kids are coming in, a person of color. So we're pretty excited about that. Then we're talking to another organization in California doing an all women's foiling camp.
Mhm.
So hopefully, it's going to take a time. It's a long journey.
Right.
It's not something you can fix overnight,
Right.
but I do think everyone's eyes are open and things are happening. And I think doors are going to start opening pretty quick here is our hope.
Well, I want to challenge us now. We're in the middle of our conversation. These are very short. It's a huge topic. If Jean-Kiel was here, she'd give us a totally other perspective, a more global perspective than we even know, but we'll talk to her tomorrow. But like what they've done with the Olympic slate for 2024, I'm going to be talking to the CEO of World Sailing this week about that. They made some big jumps in terms of the type of craft that we use. And then also for gender equity, being at least half the events being mixed. Although personally, I wasn't happy the fact that they separated the kite foiling because I thought it was really cool to have a relay with a guy and a girl. But I personally like to see big jumps in change. And the question I want to bring to the group is this. Miranda Marin, are you guys familiar with Miranda Marin? She was in the last Vendée Globe. She was one of the 6 women in the Vendée Globe. I've raced against her in class 40s, double-handed, and she's just incredible. She's one of the best women offshore sailors in the world. And she's very talented. And I asked her down at the Caribbean 600, she was a navigator for one of the offshore teams. I said, hey, Miranda, like, why aren't there more women like you being professional ocean racers and in the America's Cup? And, what, just tell me what your thought is. And she got like, Miranda hopefully listens to this. She got a little frustrated, maybe with me or with the question. And she said, make the expletive boats in a more like at a human scale. And she had a point. We raced class 40s against each other. You have gearing on winches, the boats are pretty manageable. She races an Imoca 60 around the world, but very, you don't have to be huge or small or whatever to race those. But she was specifically talking about the America's Cup boats and some other offshore crude boats that you're kind of like superhuman, to, the guys, the biggest, most fit males and females, but like the guys were like redlining all the time. We watched their heartbeat rates. And that to me is not a human scale. That's not like, the size for everyone who, if you want to excel. So I'll throw that out to the group. Does that, Daniela and Olivia, does that frustrate you to see like a jacked up guy that's huge and just, he could be a championship sailor, but he's just burning through the grinder, and you just say that this isn't at my scale. Will I ever do this? And then Kimo can tell us about the other end of that. Like, can we make a change there?
Yeah, so with does it frustrate me? To be honest, I'd never thought about it that way. I can only do what I can do. It's just with the opportunities that get offered, I guess there's generally, a lot more grinders on a boat. So
Chris,
I haven't
can
really...
I say something?
Yeah.
Why would they want to do that?
Yeah.
Why do they want to do that? They're way better than that. Why do they even want to do that? It doesn't even, big boats should just have push buttons. They don't want to do that.
Well,
they're in a whole nother level. They're in a better level. They're in a better place than doing that.
You've got a point.
Yeah. By a long way. Yeah.
Well,
like
Olivia,
I would just not even consider it.
I would say the one thing that's a bit hard is with like moth sailing and everything. I understand it's a design and a development class. So I think if females wanted to get into it and make it then more competitive, that's the beauty of the class, that we could develop the boat to suit us. But in general, like weight is quite a big, can be a barrier. But I believe people, with all the interest that's going on with SailGP and everything, those types of things are getting attention, which is really exciting. And then, as Kimo was talking about, if a woman wins the world, like the Moth Worlds, how amazing would that be? So, the fact that that class is getting attention and maybe there's more opportunities for females there, I think it could really change the way professional sailing looks in 5 or 10 years.
Perfect. And Daniela, what's your thought about that in terms of at the pinnacle of our sport, just the scaling of the craft and that angle of things?
Yeah, I guess, to be honest, so when I first like heard about SailGP in the first season, and all the team rosters were coming out, and seeing that there was only one female among all of the teams, it was definitely a bit frustrating, not necessarily like for me per se, but I was just thinking like there's so many talented female sailors in the world, like surely one of them is, or more than one of them should be qualified to do that. And it's even like for the America's Cup too, it's like, again, there's so many talented female sailors now, and I think that again, that's one cool thing about our sport, is there are so many directions you can go. And if you can, there's definitely a bit of luck involved, like Kimo said, like you have to be in the right place at the right time. But I was just thinking, like, just seeing all those teams, like at that point it was like early 2019, like, there must be more we can do here. So when I then heard that SailGP was going to start involving females, I thought that was really exciting and a big step for our sport just to put that on a more global platform. And obviously, SailGP has such a big audience now. And I think for so many people to be able to see that there's actually females on the teams now, and that women can do this, I think is a huge step in terms of inspiring the next generation as well and just getting more women involved. So yeah, don't I don't personally have an interest in ever being one of the grinders. um, but that's the thing, like there are female athletes out there that could do that. There's female, like I think Anna Tunnicliffe Tobias is a great example. Like she's a super badass CrossFit champion. And there's other women that are, kind of following that pathway that are just super into fitness and that could potentially do that, I think, if they're given the opportunity and just a little bit of guidance in a way. Um, but yeah, I agree. Like you can only do what you can. And it's really about seeing how much you can actually do and making the most of all the opportunities you're given.
And Chemo, with now the high performance foiling boats being more able to be automated, there was a reduced number of crew in the light air sail GP. I think there were a lot of critics who said, like, well, if you're going to get rid of people, why don't you leave a female on there to do tactics if you don't have to grind as much or whatever. But do you think there are opportunities there to, with the more automation of the boats, to have more accessibility to the high performance boats?
Yeah, no question. I mean, and to go back to the Vendée Globe, a woman's going to win the Vendée Globe here pretty soon, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it was incredible watching the last one. I mean, Sam Davis's boat, it was old and their sails weren't even that good. And look at her. She was right there, right? It's going to happen, and it's going to be incredible to watch. With the automation, yeah, for sure. And the problem with the sail GP, just so everyone's, there's not enough sailing time. Like, and Danielle will tell you, they hardly get to sail at all. And to try and fit everybody in and try and get this all done. I mean, luckily Daniela got to go out. They won a race, and Daniela got to go out and do the flight control. Yeah. Right after the race. And the problem, like, what is it? It's like an hour and a half, 2 hours of sailing you get a day, maybe. Like Bermuda, you guys had 5-6 hours for the whole time they were there. Right. So that's a little bit of the barrier. If there was more time or somehow we could manage that, and if the teams were sponsored, then we'd have our own destiny. Right now, it's kind of, we're under the league rule, kind of league rules, what happens and how much time we get. So cool. It's a little bit of a problem. Yes. But it'll happen. We just got to all be a little patient here.
Yeah. And your comment about the moth, actually, and Olivia picked up on that too, about, attaining, just saying, hey, I can strive for this. It's labeled, if you can achieve in something like that, where the class allows different weights and all this other side of things, you develop those skill sets. It seems to me that, and going back to my comment about the fast decision-making, we wrote about this in the New York Times, like the younger sailors had quicker, mental acuity and more decision-making skills from going faster and making decisions quickly. Is it true that just riding, whether it be surf foiling, downwind foiling, wing foiling, recreational foiling on a UFO, does all of that help in terms of your skill sets going forward as a sailor, even if you're not sailing foiling classes after that? Or is it foiling specific skills?
I think the ladies have to answer that. I mean, I'm just starting to learn to foil.
Yeah, well, tell us.
It's on my list. The cool thing is at 62, it's something you want to learn to do. Right. You know what I mean? So that's the cool thing about foiling, is that it's now like something you look forward to do as you're in retirement. Yeah. Almost.
So the question is, do all foiling skills help you, in terms of achieving your professional goals and stuff?
Yeah, I definitely would say so. I think decision making is such a key part of any type of sailing. But I would be also very curious to see what Kimo says about he obviously observes a lot of people who sail, you know, and so he would be able to see people who make the biggest jump and what they've done. And, you know, like it's very different when you're in the sport and trying to learn stuff and learn different skills versus when you're in a more of a manager role and you see people go away from the sport and come back. Like I would be very curious to see how COVID has affected people, because, you know, in New Zealand we were able to go foiling but not sailing some of the time, so
Right.
like a wing foil, say.
Mhm.
And so how people upskilled in that time would be quite cool to see.
Yeah, what do you know, Chemo?
Well, like everybody else, I was locked down, right? And I left North Sails and kind of I did the one Sail GP event in Australia, and I've just come out also. Like I just showed up at Block Island, did a couple regattas here in New England, but due to COVID, I haven't even gone to the events.
Right.
Daniela knows, you know, so.
And Olivia's talking about the talent pool and what you're seeing emerging now of people who were playing in hydrofoil versus, you know,
I think it's just gonna blossom here. The foiling thing is just gonna blossom like no other in the next 10 years. I just think everyone will be foiling because it's just fun to do. And like going back to our foiling first, we're not trying to teach racing. We just want kids to go have fun.
Yeah.
You know,
like
just get on a boat.
Started, maybe.
You just go out and have fun. Then if they want to race, certain kids are going to want to race. Some kids just want to go out and just have fun.
Right.
And that's the beauty of it. You know, even when I was kiting with another Steve Calder, who's a great sailor, an Olympian and everything else, the fun thing about doing these kind of things, there is no competition. You're not in competition with each other. It's just about going and enjoying each other's company and having a great time, getting off the water and telling how cool it was. And I think that's, you know, we're a little too racing specific. You know, people who want to race will race, but it's just about getting in the water and having fun. Where opties, you know, I hear these kids just like, oh, my kid didn't want to sail opti because he's bored to death, right? Where the foiling now is set a whole new level, kind of like what snowboarding was for skiing. You know, skiing was kind of dying, and then snowboarding came in. Now skiing hasn't gone away, but it's now blossomed into this whole new sport, right? Everyone can do it.
Yeah.
You know, so nobody even falls. You go skiing now, nobody falls.
Yeah.
Right. It's amazing.
Yeah. And so I want to take that and, you know, in these transferable skills, like you're saying, Olivia, what are you doing in the downtime, you know, and how does it help? I think a great example of that was a year ago, February, I was in Geelong for the 49er and NACRA event and the World Championships. And Joe Alley was there coaching. And in between the coaching, it was the first time I ever saw wing foil in person. I even kind of knew about it. And she was out just ripping in between, you know, like at the end of each day or something like that. And it was a perfect example of, I knew she wasn't doing it just because she was bored, you know. She was doing it because she was a coach and she saw a tremendous amount of value in not just keeping herself fresh, but also being able to communicate better with the foiling NACRA sailors. And that was an important thing. So in terms of, you know, being able to kind of better yourself, to me, that was like a great example of her kind of diversifying her skill set. So along those lines, Danielle and Olivia, what do you recommend to young women and older women if they want to, you know, up their game, you know, or even try to do what you guys are doing at the high level?
You can go, Daniela. I'll add to what you say.
Yeah, I mean, I think that any kind of foiling you can do, whether it's winging or kiting or moth sailing or whatever it is, like it's all the same principle. And I think that's one big thing I've been learning, like with spending time at Sail GP. And just recently I learned to sail a wasp, like just this past week. And just so many, it's all the same principle, like just foiling on its own. It's the same, like, you know, you're riding it's apparent wind sailing, you're, you know, a few meters off the water, if that, even less. and a lot of the skills just all translate to each other. So I think that any kind of foiling you can expose yourself to is just going to be really positive and beneficial and will, yeah, just help you overall. And I think that obviously, I think the faster you can go, the better, because it's just more fun, in my opinion. So I think that's one thing that I've been very lucky is like now kiting is the fastest Olympic sport, or Olympic sailing class. So the skills have definitely translated to the F50 and to, whatever else I'm trying to get involved with, because the, yeah, the speed is pretty close to what we're doing on the F50. Um, and yeah, you have to just be quick and sharp and be anticipating at a speed that is much higher than a lot of the classes that just aren't foiling. So yeah, I think any foiling you can do is going to be really good for you.
Cool. And so now I'm going to lead us. We can talk about a million different things. There's a lot of questions I want to ask you all about just your approach to racing and all the above, like all the great sailors in the world. But right now we have to kind of angle into the big picture before we wrap things up. And the one I'll share with you a challenge that I have as a journalist, and maybe the three of you can give a recommendation for improving the current situation in terms of access to the sport for females. It's not like it's horrible, like you said, there are opportunities, but there's always room for improvement. So my challenge as a journalist is anytime we find a topic, whether it be the 15 panel discussions we've been working on here at Foiling Week, or me doing an article on the America's Cup, or whatever I write about for the New York Times, is in our sport, I can so quickly pick up a source on any topic that's a male. Like any topic, I can pick up a source and it's almost inevitably a male, right? The fastest first person I could think of from my experience, and that's exposed in the world, whether it be an engineer, a sailor, a sailmaker, a sail designer, someone who works on boats, a builder. It's always, because of the way the industry is, it's always fastest for me to find a male, but I have to do a lot of searching. Not that there's not someone at least at par, if not better, in that field, but I have to do a tremendous amount of searching because I have all these blind spots, and there's just not as many women in those roles. So it's extra work, but I know they exist, and I know they're at least as good of a source, if not better, a lot of times. But that's a problem. So I guess I'm going to transfer this into opportunities on the water. There's still a lot more male boat owners for racing boats in the world, and they have choice to see who they should ask. And oftentimes it's easier to find a young guy to sail for the same reasons that I just said. But like you all said, there are plenty of talented female racers now, and it's getting more and more and more. What can we do about that to encourage people to open up their blind spots? The people in charge, the people who own boats, the people who are looking for crew or skippers for the dinghies that they race. How do we kind of change that mindset? Because otherwise you're just going to go with the easiest thing. And we're still a male dominated, there's still male domination a lot of the sport in terms of decision making, even though we have a president of a lot of the federations are female now. I know it's an odd question, but how do we change people's behavior?
I think in your prep that you sent out, you asked how much influence do like high profile sailors have, and people who are on boards, and journalists and so forth. I think they obviously have the biggest influence over everything, recommending people. What we talked about earlier, it's all about people, which doesn't leave a lot of job security or a pathway that we were talking about earlier. But unfortunately, it's kind of the way of our sport, and I do think it's the responsibility of those types of people. I also think the social aspect, what you asked before about what I would recommend to a young person, is like, get your friends, get your friends going sailing, and like that's such a big part of it, is like having fun. And I really like hanging out with guys, but love hanging out with my like friends that are females as well, you know. So and then as that progresses, it's like you get your mate on a boat, or you meet people, and it's kind of like that. I think that's a lot of the sport, and then you learn more than you know when you're having fun. And you become resourceful, you become an asset to a team, and then you're good, you know, like you have a lot of confidence, and that's my opinion.
Yeah. So Daniela, that kind of moves to what do you do with your influence?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a huge thing is that we all look to the big names in sailing or the big names of any industry to kind of get direction in where things are going. So I think it's everyone's responsibility is to, check your blind spots and just give more people the opportunity to, experience what you're experiencing. And I think being able to share like my sport with other people, like that's one thing I love is I love coaching, and because I have the opportunity to share my sport and what I'm doing with those around me. So I think it's a similar thing where those, people in high places, well, not necessarily high places, but the people that, are in the positions to be able to share those experiences and opportunities, they just have to do that, and we can't even be thinking twice about it because it's the right thing to do. And I think that, you know the more people we give that opportunity, the more our sport will grow, and the better we all get in the end. So yeah, I think it's everybody's responsibility.
Nice. Chemo, influence. If you're sitting on a board with all guys, do you insist that there's a woman on the board? How do these things change?
Our board is all women.
Cool.
And I'll be honest with you.
How long are you going to be on? They're going to kick
enjoyable.
you off.
No, I'm not on the board.
Okay.
They're on our board. Yeah, I'm actually not on the board. And I'll say the one thing coming out of seeing sailing, because I did take some time off, is that there's women on all the boats now. Like it's Block Island Race Week. There's always women seen on the boat, and it's always more enjoyable to have women on the boat and have a mixed crew than it is having all men. It's fun. It's just enjoyable. Mm-hmm. And then, on the professional side, I think we got to touch on it because you keep mentioning professional sailing. Mm-hmm. You got to remember, there's not many professional, like the TP52s, the Comanche style boats. There's not many of those even being built.
Right.
And all those professionals are all kind of protecting their job because there's not many jobs left.
Right.
Right. So that's why they're kind of keeping it all to themselves, which is unfortunate. But in the end of the day, the foiling thing's way more fun than doing that.
Yeah.
Sailing with 16 people on a 50-footer, really?
Yeah.
Is that intended? Come on. It's not really. I don't think
exists.
That's the way.
That doesn't mean it's awesome.
Doesn't mean it's awesome, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. So I think we just got to keep our eyes open here and keep just opening the doors as much as possible. And I think it is. I like you said, it's not owners and just general sailing are inviting women on the boat all the time. I see it. So I think, like I said before earlier, I think in the next 3 or 4 years, it's going to be pretty amazing, everything that's going to happen here, especially with the foiling. The foiling thing's just unbelievable.
Yeah.
How cool and fun it looks.
Not everything, but it's pretty influential.
Well, I mean, I was at a birthday party for, let's say, Ken Reed. I was at his birthday party the other day in Block Island. He's going to turn 60. He's got all his buddies showed up because I was there when he was 50 years old. And I mean, this isn't women specific, but I'm talking about the foiling. I said, guys, here's what you should do. You should get an e-foil and go learn how to foil, and you can go wing foil at 60 years old.
Yeah.
And I think that's going to trickle right through the whole sport, women and men, and they'll all do it together. So
awesome. And that improves accessibility. And we've been identifying that early on. Yeah. Which is perfect.
Accessibility is the whole thing.
Yeah. And the one thing that, I've experienced is, being an early adopter in our region of wing foiling, even though I'm not that great yet. It might take a while. I watched Daniela's videos. That was my first startup.
Nice. Love it.
It's very helpful, although I'm never going to ride a sinker like you just did. But the one challenge, and back to the blind spots, was that all my guy friends called me after I wrote an article, and I said, make sure you teach your wife too. It's all like everyone's going to dig it. And they had their blinders on because they're like, oh, I kite, I windsurf. That's my thing, you know? And we forget that foiling is very accessible for non-sailors, sailors, everyone. So that's really important. I want to close this off, and I do this. I was just speaking with Guillaume Verdier and Elise Beavis and Francesco Bruni, and I was asking them what their jam is right now. It doesn't have to be sailing or whatever. And by the way, you're in really great company. A lot of the women that we've had on, we had Annie Reichert, if you follow her on Instagram, she's got a big following on Instagram. She's just a rock star water woman from Maui. And then Paula Novotna, who's a freestyle champion in kiting and now the Global Wing Sports Association. And so a lot of great, athletes, not just female and male. But we'll go around the room. We'll start Daniela, Olivia, then Kimo. What's your jam right now? What's your most fun thing to do and to share with people? And it doesn't have to be sailing. And when are you going sailing next?
That's a good question. I just love foiling and I like going fast. So I've been learning to sail a wasp this past week, which has been super, super fun. And yeah, I think it's like just any way I can get out on the water. I love doing that. And like last Friday I got on a Far 40 for the first time, which was super cool, just in some like Friday night series in the Bay Area. So yeah, I think like just any way I can get out on the water, I'm game.
Yeah, you don't mind pushing water sometimes.
Yeah, sometimes. Only sometimes. We try to keep it to a minimum, but you can only do so much.
And how about you, Olivia? What's your jam these days?
Well, as you said, I'm in Garda, so I'm actually watching all the moths launching right now for the Aura.
Oh, no. Sorry.
So we're rigging up the ETF for this week, so that should be super fun. I bought a wasp last week, so also doing some of that. And then, yeah, anytime outside, I really love trail running or, doing everything else. St. Garda is just paradise as usual.
Nice. Now, Kimo, assuming that your body's still holding up after all the abuse you gave it over the years in sailing, what's your jam these days?
Right now, the wife and I we came to a conclusion that we're nomads, so we love to just keep moving around.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So
why bother owning a house?
So we do own a house, but like we've already. We go home, we're going to Greece because my wife just got a free cruise. So we're going to Greece. And then we're doing a honeymoon trip in Yellowstone on the bikes for a week of riding.
How many honeymoons are you going to have?
Oh, yeah, one. It's only haven't had one yet.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
It's the first one. Yeah. So we got that going on. Then I'm doing another cruise on a Swan 54 like in August. What else are we doing? Bike riding, kiting. If I can get out kiting, it's heaven, right?
Awesome.
I just love to ride and bike and hike, and kite. Yeah. And then the next step is foiling. I did try to do foiling lessons and at Rio Kiteboard.
Yeah.
You gotta spend some time. It takes a little bit of time. And I'm not ready. I'm like just getting good at kiting. I'm like, wait a minute, let me just have some fun here for a couple, 8 months, and then I'll switch over to the foiling. So
cool. Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, this is fantastic. Again, we can all hang out forever. I mean, that's really not just foiling, just the greatest part of our sport is you run into people that you can just dig everyone and have such a good time together. I like what you guys are all talking about in terms of like what Olivia said, just sharing the sport with people. And like Daniela said, just being out on the water, coaching, looking for opportunities to share things with everyone. And that's the most fun part about it. It's almost like we race so we have the opportunity to hang out. And I like the direction that things are going. Like you said, Kimo, mixed teams are way more fun than single gender teams. Although I've never been on an all women's team. Maybe that's a lot of fun. But maybe your America's Cup team. I saw Hannah Sweat yesterday wing foiling here, and she tells me stories about any campaign is tough. Any America's
They're
Cup.
all tough. And yeah, America's Cup campaign with 32 people.
Yeah, male or female. Well, thank you, everyone. This has been absolutely fantastic. We're going to close down this session of the Gurit Forum and Foiling Week 2021. I can't wait to see what all of you do, and I can't wait to see Kimo up on the foil as well. And we've been watching Olivia and Daniela. We've been watching your careers, and this next stage of your career is going to be really, it's already groundbreaking. Everything you guys do is new. So we love watching it. Thank you for giving us the time. And I'm glad you guys got to hang out with us, and we'll see you on the next session. So
Right.
thanks
Thanks.
you so much.
everyone.
See ya.
See ya.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, cool.